Welcome to the Real Paranormal Stories podcast with your host, Christopher Buckner. Send your stories to realparanormalstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Royalty-free music provided by Kevin MacLeod and Tabletop Audio. And now, let's take a trip into the paranormal. This story comes from a Reddit user who wanted to remain anonymous. And this is their story. This is just a collection of things that happened in tandem, but made for a pretty ghostly experience. When I lived with my parents, we had these decorative brass plates hung on the wall, leading up to the second floor of the house. They had been there going on 10 years and had never budged or moved or fell off the wall. One night pretty late, I was going to bed. Everyone was already asleep. I turned off all the lights and headed up the stairs, but as I did, one of the plates fell off its screw and, being made of brass, went clanging down the stairs. The loudness made me freeze and gave me a good shock as it echoed around the house. I froze, expecting to hear my mom and sister wake up, but nobody did. So I quietly put it back and went to bed. The next morning, seeing my mom, I apologized if I had woken her up. She said she never heard anything, but at what time did this happen? I said about 10 to 3 in the morning. She laughed a bit and said that's really curious because she was actually awake at that time. The reason for which was, she was laying in bed and had woken up feeling panicked, like she was having a bad dream. She could feel someone in bed beside her and reached her hand over to touch my dad's face just to confirm. In doing so, she yelped and sat up because she did indeed feel the smooth face behind her, but my dad has and always had a beard. Furthermore, as she began to wake up more, she realized she knew my dad wouldn't be there because he works nights. So as I was standing in the hallway hoping all the noise didn't wake anyone up, my mom was sat up in bed wondering why the hell she thought she felt the face of a person beside her, but also heard no noise. Neither of us are spiritual or particularly believe in ghost stories, but I like to joke that there was some raunchy ghost getting cozy with my mom. She woke up and startled it, and it ran past me on the stairs, knocking the plate off the wall. And that is their story. This story comes from a Reddit user who wanted to remain anonymous. And this is their story. I manage a venue that used to be a Roman Catholic church, and was then abandoned and used as a flophouse for many years. I am frequently in the building alone late at night by myself, closing up after shows and club nights. Several strange things have happened to me there. 1. I was really busy setting up for an event, and I was walking along the mezzanine area toward a room that everyone had told me was haunted. And while I love ghost stories, I don't really believe in the supernatural on a fundamental level. The last thing on my mind at this time was spooky stuff. I was en route from one area to another, on a mission to do some logistical task or another. I paused at the railing, and suddenly I felt the sensation of being grabbed hard around the ankle, as though from below, which made no sense as it was a 20-foot drop down to the main floor. I leapt backwards and started shaking my leg and looked everywhere, but saw nothing. 2. I was taking a meeting in broad daylight with a collaborator. We were sitting on a plush couch in the middle of the space, enjoying our conversation about a potential series of events we could do. Because it was a business meeting, I left one cushion of space between him and myself on the couch. Suddenly, mid-sentence, I felt the distinct sensation of someone walking up to us and then sitting directly between us. We both paused and just stared at the cushion, which was moving. There was an impression as though someone had sat down, and there was a palpable energy and tension in the air. It felt for all the world as though an invisible person was sitting right there. We sat frozen in silence for about 30 seconds, which is actually a long time in the middle of a business meeting, staring at the cushion, until I finally waved my arms through the space in exasperation and laughed. We were both confused and shaken and ended the meeting quickly. 3. I had to supervise a group who was rehearsing in the space. I was hungover and got in the morning, led in the group, and went upstairs into a secluded area to take a nap on the couch and wait out my shift. Mid-nap, I woke up suddenly and heard someone slowly descending the stairs from the bell tower. I froze and kept my eyes closed, thinking it was someone from the rehearsing group, and I just wanted them to go away. The footsteps drew closer, and I heard what sounded like a man muttering to himself under his breath as he leaned over me and grasped my hip hard. He squeezed it until it hurt. I let out a yell and opened my eyes, but there was nobody there. Probably just sleep paralysis, but very odd. I've never had a sleep paralysis incident before. 4. Multiple instances of seeing figures in the mirror, hearing doors slam, etc. People calling my name from distant corners when I'm there by myself. The custodian once told me she refuses to clean at night anymore since she heard someone quietly praying in the confessional at 3 a.m. Everyone likes to claim it's the ghosts of all these Irish Catholic priests and their parishioners. But in my opinion, the many years the church sat empty and desolate as a last resort shelter for drug addicts and prostitutes is the more likely window of time where people would have died desperate, lost, and in pain. And that is their story. That's all for this episode of the Real Paranormal Stories podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a review anywhere this podcast can be found.